like, so, you know, you've got to play triathlete and you've got to look in good nick. What kind of stuff do you do in, like, regime-wise? So what would a normal week for you leading up to that look like? So, you know, in the gym or, you know, different stuff you'd do?
Yeah, so on that film, it was a MGM Warner Brothers picture, so, you know, we had a little bit more money than we would have had on some other projects I've done. So they were able to get me a personal trainer, Tim Blakely, who is just my hero. He's just one of my favourite people in the world. And we sat down and we talked about, you know, what are we trying to achieve here, body-wise. I'm like, well, he's a personal trainer, so he's going to be, you know, he's going to be strong physically, but at the same time, he's very, very concerned about his body fat ratio. That's already established in the original novel, in the source material. He's running a triathlon, so he's not going to be big, he's not going to be heavy. He's going to be very lean. And I try to do this with Tim, and it's all about, you know, I don't know, I've never run a triathlon, so it's all about trying to be aware that you can't do it all this yourself. You need to draw inspiration and get advice from other people. So Tim was like, okay, well that's, I think I can work with that. And so he went and devised a program for me to achieve those goals. Put me on a diet, and you look at the schedule and you go, okay, right, so you're going to be in Lycra, skin tight for most of this, you're going to have your shirt off here, so let's look at those as targets, you know, they're goals for you to get in shape.
Deadlines then.
Exactly, yeah, stuff like that, and then you work your training schedule accordingly. So I gave up alcohol for the period of that shoot. And again, the thing with that was, I mean, you know, if you're going to be doing a film mostly in Lycra with Emilia Clarke, you don't need much more inspiration to get in shape, but at the same time, that kind of thing was that the character Patrick was so focused on this triathlon. That was his only thing. He was neglecting his girlfriend because all he cared about was this triathlon. And I wanted to know what it was like to have a goal like that. And so my goal was Rap Day, was June 2nd last year. That's when I can have a beer and a pizza. Yeah. And that was my goal, and nothing else mattered. And so I didn't drink any alcohol until then. I didn't eat any carbohydrates until then. And it was kind of boring, it was kind of dull for a time, but it was like, that's all I cared about, and that was my one goal, and that helped me get into his kind of mindset in the film. So again, there's little things you can do that help you put into that way of thinking of your character. So that's what we did. So yeah, so I train either at Pinewood Studios, where they've got a gym there, which is the same gym that they use for Bond and Star Wars, because Tim works on training Daniel Craig for Bond and stuff like that. So that was, you know, to have him on board was, you know, incredible. Someone with that amount of experience as a PT, specifically a film PT as well. So we train there, or we train at his gym, which is in Slough, which I know you're a big Office fan. You'll know Slough. So I went down there quite a bit. So I train like 3 times a week with Tim, and then I'd train on my own at the weekends. And then he'd just do every week would just be like quizzing me on my diet. What have you been eating? What have you not been eating? All this kind of stuff. And you know what? I loved it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I actually trained with him on Wednesday this week for the first time since we finished, because we had the premiere on Wednesday night. So I went and trained with him, and he tweaked my whole thing, and he's just giving me advice for the future, really. And it's good to have these kind of people on board. I feel very fortunate to be surrounded by a really great team of people.
I mean, like, so you mentioned Emilia Clarke, and what's it like to work with her? I mean, we see her, you know, every Monday tearing up Game of Thrones or whatever, and she's coming out with fire and all this. Yeah. So it's pretty surreal for you to just be on, you know, be friends basis or whatever. So how different is it when you go to meet her and speak to her, and, you know, she's not riding dragons and all that sort of stuff?
It's odd, really. I mean, it's not something I ever think I'll ever get used to. I always get, you know, I do get starstruck. I'm a massive geek when it comes to film and TV and stuff like that, and I have people who I'm a huge fan of and things, and you can sit there and you can go, well, you know, I've done this, I've done that, like I've sort of earned the right to be in the room and do this kind of stuff, but it never works that way. I always get so nervous. I always think, what am I doing here? Why are you here? And I remember going in to meet her for the first time, because we did quite a bit of rehearsals. Again, when you're doing a picture like this, you get a chance to do rehearsals, which on TV we don't really get. We don't have time, we don't have the money. So that was really nice to come in and have rehearsals and meet her in much more informal setting, rather than just going straight on set and being like, right, go. Yeah. So we got that time to build that relationship. I remember going straight into the room being so nervous, not having a clue what to say, tongue-tied, you know, GQ's sexiest woman in the world. And I've got to play a boyfriend. Brilliant. Yeah, that's going to be fine, isn't it? But again, and this is what I mentioned, I touched on earlier about how lead actresses can set a tone. And straight away, she was the most easygoing, friendly, approachable person who, from the moment I met her, was just fun. And it's a word that I've used so much this week when talking about Me Before You, but the environment was just so much fun. Everyone was relaxed, and there was a freedom that we had to try things, and if it was rubbish, it was rubbish. You just go again and do it differently, and it's nice to have that environment, and I think that people like Emilia, they as the lead have a responsibility to set that tone, and she did that incredibly, so it was a great experience. I really enjoyed working with her. She's an incredible talent.
You mentioned Office. Who's your comedy hero? Is there anyone that you quote to your mates or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we go into the living room later on to watch rugby, I don't know, but you'll see we've got my brother and I have got a framed picture of Alan Partridge up on the. Have you already seen it?
I clocked it.
Yeah, Steve Coogan is like our comedy hero. Partridge in particular is, I think, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comedy creation of all time. The first series of I'm Alan Partridge was a masterpiece that I will watch again and again and still like belly laugh out loud. And it almost came to a point where I had to stop watching it because it was invading my actual life. Like I would have his mannerisms, and I'd talk to people, and someone would get introduced to me. I'd just go, and I was doing Partridge, and but if they've not seen it, it's just you're just being really rude. I know. And I do it all the time, and I quote him, and people just think I'm a complete loser. I'm a geek. I'm just quoting Partridge, who is a loser and a geek. But in fact, we had a terrible. Actually, one of my greatest moments ever was my brother and I went down to Waterstones at Piccadilly to meet not Steve Coogan but Alan Partridge. He was doing a book signing in character as Alan Partridge, and I thought, oh my God, what an opportunity to meet literally our hero. I never thought would happen. So we went down, we queued up, and he'd been told that I was in the queue. So when I got to the front, I shook his hand and stuff, and he said, "Oh, my daughter's a big fan." And so he was talking to me as Steve Coogan, talking about his actual daughter, but there's me like completely like not interested in Steve Coogan. I went, "Oh, do you mean Denise?" Which is Alan Partridge's daughter. And Steve was just like, "Oh, yes, yeah, Denise, yeah." And as soon as I walked away, I felt like such an idiot. I was like, literally, Steve Coogan broke character, which he was never done before, to try and actually have a conversation with me as an actor to an actor. And I basically just went, "No, I want B Partridge. I've not come here for Coogan, B Partridge."
That was brilliant.
And I felt like such an idiot. But at the same time, you know, that's what I was there for. Yeah. So sorry, Steve.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm here for.
That one.
Yeah.
No, it's such a crossover. That I mean, me and Rob are massive Office fans. And it did get to a point where I was David Brent walking around. I'd walk into training, I'm David Brent, I'd see Rob, he's Gareth. Yeah, you know, it's brilliant, mate.
And it's fine amongst you lot. Me and my brother, like, if I did that like shoulder shrug, my brother would be across the room, like, pissing himself laughing. But the fact is, these characters are proper losers. Yeah. Like if I'd started to become Han Solo on a daily basis, that'd be fine because he's really cool. Yeah. But no, I've chosen Alan Partridge to become, and people just think you're an absolute idiot.
Tend to choose the funniest and the funniest losers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is there any certain types of music that you align with certain points in your life?
I remember when I was when I was a teenager, and I was like say 14, 15. This little short, chubby geek, really. Yeah, and I remember just being mad into Oasis. I still am. But like Liam Gallagher was just like he was my hero at the time. He was like my idol, and it was kind of whenever I'd be a bit like, oh, no girls fancy me, or I'm not, you know, I'm playing this geeky character on TV, and I'm just, you know, every time I had that kind of teenage angst, or lack of self-worth, I just stick on like Bring It On Down or Cigarettes and Alcohol, and I just strut around with this snarl like, you know what, I don't care, because I'm Liam Gallagher and I don't care. And I don't know if it was very healthy for me at all. Yeah, but I just remember having that attitude, and I grew out of it quite quickly because I realised I was just being a bit of a knob. But it was kind of, I do remember that vividly as a teenager, just being like, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
I do what I want, I don't care, blah, blah. Obviously that's not a way to approach life at all.
It helped you though, Oasis helped you, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it did. And then as I got older, you know, maturity took on, and I moved away from Liam towards Noel, who I thought was a much more rounded individual, and his music does. It speaks. It really does. I think he's just got a song for every occasion. And so yeah, Oasis are definitely a band that I can see at different points in my life where their songs have helped me through moments, or have just been just a great tune to stick on, you know.
So if you could be anyone else for the day, anyone you want, who would you be?
Oh man, be anyone. But I tell you what, I would genuinely, I'd fancy being a rugby league player for a day. Only for a day, mind. I don't want the next day when you're all in bits.
Just a Friday
night?
I'd
like, yeah, just a Friday night, you know, to step out at Headingley, to have all Rhinos fans there chanting, and to feel that electric kind of atmosphere, or at Old Trafford or whatever. You know, to play for Rhinos is like a dream that I'll sadly never fulfil, but that is definitely a dream of mine. So that'd be amazing. That, but again, like we've already discussed, like I'm not cut out for that. So I'd do it for 24 hours, and then
just to see.
And then when I got the adrenaline to keep me going, I'll be fine. And then next day, see you later, can have it back.
Come back to me all that. Yeah. So in your childhood, you know, did you ever look at anyone as heroes? And then, you know, I'm in a unique situation where, as a young lad, I've been watching these Rhinos players, and I've grown up to meet them and kind of, you know, be on even terms with them and be mates with them. And you know, have you anyone in specific, or you know, in your area which you can think of? Yeah. I mean, I've been very lucky and very fortunate in my career that I've been able to work with a lot of people who I've looked up to and respected. But you know, aside from my own career, like just looking at you lads, everyone at Leeds, you know, yourself, Kev, JP, Jonesy, Magsy, Rob, everyone who's been there, you know, for all those years since I was a little boy watching from the terraces at Headingley. I just grew up idolising everyone at Leeds Rhinos, and so to get to an age where I can call you all mates and go to the pub with you and celebrate your success, I mean, that means a huge amount to me. I'll always have that as when I look back as the little boy Matthew, and thinking who his heroes were, and thinking that's mental that I'm now, you know, going to the pub with these lads. That blows my mind all the time. I'll never really get over that, to be honest. And in terms of like in my own industry, yeah, you know, growing up working on Harry Potter, there's a whole bunch of people who I looked up to as actors. Like Rik Mayall was one of my heroes as a kid, and he was in the first film, and he was actually cut out of it in the end, but we got to shoot with him, I got to work with him, and when he died it was actually heartbreaking, because I was such a huge fan of his, and to know that I'd at some point in my career, you know, be able to work and mess around with him. And Robbie Coltrane's another one, some great comedy actors, but you know, so capable of doing serious, and like the fact that I can just text him whenever I want, you know, and just give him a call, it's absolutely it's never in my wildest dreams that I think that I'd be able to just call these kind of heroes of my mates. Yeah. Is there any one question which you've always wanted to ask, or there's something you wanted to get out that you just wish the journalist would ask you, and you just want to get a specific point of view out? Is it anything?
Oh God, that I want someone to ask me.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like people to ask more about like kind of, I mean, you know how much we've already talked about it endlessly throughout this interview. And again, I told you right at the start, I'm like a broken record, but I'd like people to ask more about, like, you know, passions outside of acting. Like, I mean, I love my job, and it is amazing, and I'm very fortunate to do it, but it's not all that I am interested in. And so it'd be nice if someone went, okay, well that's that's your acting out the way. Let's talk about, you know, what do you like to do on a weekend? And I say, I like to go down to Edinley and watch the Rhinos play and have a coffee. Have a coffee with the lads and stuff like that. And I'm a man of simple pleasures, I'll be honest with you, Stevie. I don't like talking about myself too much. So
got a full 3 hours talking about it.
I know, you won't believe it, would you?
Just because you're my mate yourself. Do you have a dream role which you'd love to do in acting? Is there something in the past where you thought having a dig at that would be brilliant?
I don't have a dream role, but I tell you what, actually, you've just caught me at the right time, because normally I wouldn't have a dream role. Like, I remember when I was younger, I always wanted to play a soldier. I did that. Wouldn't mind playing a cowboy, that'd be decent. I like westerns, I like the old spaghetti westerns and stuff. But I watched Kingsmen yesterday. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I
thought it was so good. I really enjoyed it. I thought everyone was brilliant in it, and I remember watching that thinking, I'd love to have a go at a film like that. You know, it was kind of like almost superhero, you know, like comic book esque movie, and yet it's very adult. It's very tongue in cheek. Doesn't take itself too seriously. Everyone looks so cool. The suits were brilliant. So, you know, Bond is not something that I've ever really thought, I'm desperate to be James Bond. It's a bit, you know, serious kind of thing. I never saw myself as I still don't see myself as a James Bond, but something more, a bit less serious, something that took itself a bit less seriously, but still in the same kind of.
Have you seen Deadpool?
World. Yeah. So all that kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of genre. I like films that can laugh at themselves. I thought Kingsman and Deadpool were great examples of that. I think the superhero genre is going that way. I think it has to go that way. It's become so serious. Batman v Superman. It's almost like it has to now try and do something different. It has to break out of that mold, and I think those two movies have done that incredibly well. So yeah, something like that would be decent.
Bro. So how do you deal with the fame? You know, the massive fame. Obviously, it's derived from Harry Potter. And how do you kind of attack it, or what's the craziest thing you've seen a fan do? Or?
It's an odd kind of thing, really. I try not to think about it too much. As I said to you earlier, it's something that hasn't really ever sunk in with me, and it's only when you go to foreign countries and people recognise you there. Like I was in Hungary last week and got recognised a bunch of times. I was like, how do you know I'm in Hungary? But then it's kind of the global nature of, you know, the films that I've done, and sort of be aware of that. But I guess the way that I try and cope with it is that it's just a job at the end of the day. Like, I'm very fortunate that people enjoy what I do, and that people want to talk to me and meet me, and I'm very humbled by that, because I have the same thing with you guys and with other actors and musicians, that I get starstruck, and I never ever want to lose that either. I always want to have that feeling of glee and excitement around meeting heroes. But for me, it's like, it's just a job. Like it's I turn up to work on a day, and I do my bit, and then I go home, and you know, I'm constantly looking for the next job. I never try and think. I never think that I've made it. I never think, oh, now I'm there. Now this is it. Now I'm in Hollywood, or I'm this, that, and the other. It's just a job, and you have to keep working, and I think that helps me sort of keep it all on the ground. You know, my job is not any more important than anyone else's job in the world. It's probably less important than most jobs in the world. You know, so people might know my name and they might know what I do and things, but you know, I'm not a firefighter. I'm not a paramedic. Like, I'm not a soldier. There are jobs out there that are far more courageous, far more important, require a far more diverse skill set than anything that I do. So I would never ever think that anything that I do is very important. And so I think that people just need to be very, very aware of that fame is. I mean, I don't really know what it is, really. You know, I'm not going to sit here and go, I hate being famous, it's horrible, it's terrible. It's not. People are lovely, it's nice, there's perks to the job, but I don't really get it. I experience it with other people. I go, God, I know that guy, that's cool. But I don't get it. I don't get what the allure is to just, because you've seen that guy, suddenly you want, it's very surreal. But you know, it's just as long as you keep a a level, grounded head on things. Which again, I have friends like Nick, who will just constantly tell me all the time, you're like,
rip you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I ever got any kind of above my station, he would bring me down 10 pegs, you know. So it's like, it's not something I ever thought has affected me too much. I've never wanted it to affect me, because I don't see anything that I do being better than anything that anyone else does. But there has been some crazy fans over the years. They're all brilliant. Like all the fans that we've had, particularly Harry Potter fans, are just they're incredible. Like, so supportive, and you know, those films. The last one came out 5 years ago now, and still, like, the websites are so supportive of everything that I do outside of it. You know, things that are so far detached from Harry Potter, and yet they're so supportive, so keen to spread the word about things that I'm doing, and that's really, really nice. That's really, really important. And I think that fans are, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we make these projects because they're art, or we're trying to tell stories, or this, that and the other, whatever pretentious thing you want to add to it. But, you know, if no one's watching it, what's the point? Like, the fans are what we really are making all these things for. It's entertainment at the end of the day. And so I think people, you know, you need to always be aware that they are what this is all about. So, you know, there's no point making a 3-hour epic film that's worthy of an Oscar if literally 0 people saw it. Because why have you done that? You've wasted your time. And so you have to sort of bear that in mind, that these people are the ones that it's all for. It's what it's all about, and they deserve respect. Really, for that. And I know when I've met people who have been so gracious and so humble that it's a very special moment, and I would never want to not be able to give that back to anyone who, I don't know why, but anyone who would want to meet me. But yeah, so there was a girl actually in Canada, a Canadian girl, who had a little bit of trouble in her life, and she'd been to some dark places, and she'd said that she'd attempted suicide and things like that, and that when she saw Harry Potter, the character of Neville had helped her to fight through this adversity and come out the other end, and she had a tattoo of my signature on her arm, which she showed me, and I mean, there's nothing in life that can really prepare you for that. To think that, you know, that's what we make art for, you know, is to tell these stories, to change people's lives, you know, without wanting to add too much gravitas to the things that we do. But it's like, you know, that's what stories have that power to do. And to think that a character that I played on screen had that effect on someone's life, you know, someone's actual life, that is mind blowing. I can't really comprehend that. And so that was a moment of, like, the intensity of the fan base, but also like what a responsibility we have. Definitely. You know, and how a lot of times we sit on a knife edge. You know, if I'd have been horrible to her or dismissive of her, that could have been terrible. And I'm not saying that I have powers over people or anything like that, but it's just, I think we just all had to just be aware of that on a day-to-day basis, whether we're in films or not. You know, everyone we meet, we have a responsibility to just be friendly and spread that kind of, you know, it only takes a second to smile at someone, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Are there any spells or anything that comes across in Harry Potter that you'd love to take into real life?
You enjoyed asking that question, didn't you? Yeah.
Gotta get that in.
I quite like the one that unlocks doors, the Alohomora one. Which is kind of seems a bit. It's not like the most exciting answer you're probably going to get.
You don't want to rob banks in that, do you?
No. I mean, that's not. I mean, that might be something I use it for.
Yeah, could do.
But no, I just always forget my house key, all the time, all the time. And I had to go and like the neighbour opposite, she's got a key for our house, and I had to go wake her up at like 1 in the morning the other week because I got locked out of the house. She was not impressed.
That's brilliant.
So that'd be really handy if I could get myself in.
I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
That is a very different.
It's decent, right?
Yeah, that is.
I'm thinking purely practical. I don't need it. I'm very content in life. I don't need to change anything. But
don't need to fly out.
No, man. Exactly. It's a purely practical thing. I just need to get home.
You can't
It's 1 in the morning, I don't need this. Just let me in.
What have you got on your bookshelf apart from Alan Partridge?
On my bookshelf? That's a good question. I love books. I'm really fond of books and reading, and I mean, I'm not going to list you all the books on my bookshelf, but do you want me to just give you a choice? Like,
just a choice, it's a select choice, yeah.
We're all there. Okay, so I'm reading a Stephen King book at the minute. It's a big epic, it's like this thick, called The Stand, which I'm really enjoying. It's about the end of the world. Nice and upbeat,
Nice,
you know. Yeah. Really enjoying that. I kind of like epics, you know, ones that you can really spend months just invested in the characters and the big sweeping. Like, I read a book recently called Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, which is, again, it's like 1,200 pages, set about, this is going to sound so rubbish, it's about the building of a cathedral in like the 11th century in the south of England. That's literally it.
Is it good?
It's really good. I'm not kidding. It's really good. It took me months to read it. It goes on forever. It spans like 50 years. Oh, it was brilliant.
How big's the cathedral?
Oh, it's massive.
Big.
It's massive. Like, well, you know, they're only using like stone instruments, aren't they? It's 1,000 years ago.
Yeah,
But no, I tell you what. Who knew that building a cathedral would be so engrossing?
And they could write a book about it.
Exactly. And there's a sequel as well. 1,400 pages.
Is it like Phoenix Nights where it gets burnt down and they put another...
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
No,
That's exactly what happens.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But then this happens during the plague, the sequel.
Yeah.
So there's a bit more excitement with the plague. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The plague of 1348, bit of history for you there. So that's a good one. I enjoyed that. They're all the big ones then. I read another book called Shogun by James Clavell. This one sounds well more exciting than building a cathedral.
Yeah.
This is another big epic, and it's based on a true story about the first. It's set in the 16th century, so Elizabethan England, and this captain, English captain of a ship, gets shipwrecked in Japan. One of the first Westerners to be in Japan. He ends up becoming a samurai, first ever Westerner to become a samurai, and then becomes chief advisor to the shogun across the shogun feudal wars of Japan. And that's based on a true story. It was an Englishman that was the first samurai in Japan, and that's a good one. That Shogun, it's called.
Might give that one a read.
Yeah, it's decent. You like that?
Cheers, Matt, for everything, mate.
No worries, thanks. Pillars of the Earth, I'm telling you.
Pillars of the Earth.
Oh, cathedrals.
Cathedrals.
If you like architecture, that's your one.
Does it give you a guide to make it? Or?
It does, the whole lot. It's in complete in depth. You learn all about how to build them. Yeah.
That's class. That is gold. That's gold. Just signed off for the first of many Mantality TV, so stay tuned and keep your eyes peeled for the next one.